Thank you all for joining us this morning. I'm actually going to take off from what Caitlin said earlier today. Why are we integrating technology at our cultural institutions? And not just because it's school, right? She already gave us that pointer, not because it's school. So how can we make sure that the technologies that we work with are in sync with what the audience needs? It's going to be a big, broad question, and I invite all of you to deliberate on it. And maybe we start there, Jeff.
Sure, glad to. First, thanks for being here. I'm Jeff Love. I'm a Digital Heritage Research Fellow at TU Delft. I don't know, the question evokes a lot of ideas in me, I suppose, and so many of the things that Caitlin was talking about resonate with the world that I live in, technology and culture. Addressing specifically people's needs, I really like the idea of belonging. And when the question of needs come up, and it's one that always seems to come up in talking to heritage institutions or people at heritage institutions, we want to include people, we want to reach them in some way. And so I think there's a lot of knowledge that still needs to be gained about why people connect to heritage, why it's the word I often use is intrinsically valuable. Why is it important to people? And then the technology is just sort of there to facilitate, it feels like often, whether it's a new gadget or a new app or something like that. It needs to fit in some way. And yeah, I don't know, it requires a lot of thought. That's where I'll start, I guess.
That's a great start. Monique.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Monique Calisti. I'm the president of a non-profit association that is called Digital for Planet. So we're very much focused on aspects that concern development of technologies, of digital technologies that help protecting our planet, not just addressing climate changes. Well, I think that there's a lot of factors that we should consider. I'm a technologist that's my background. And I think technology has become more than a mean. So in a way, it's an extension almost of our senses of the way we live. I'm not saying, I try not to judge on whether this is good or bad, but this is a fact. It is a fact that technology connects, but I think what we should do is to go back to how technology is designed and involve end users from the very beginning in the design of these technologies to make sure that we design technologies that are human-centric, that are centered around the real needs of humans and of our planet as a consequence, because without a safe environment, we wouldn't have a human species surviving. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of open questions, for sure. And I think we will only be able to come up with something relevant if we make sure that there is a multidisciplinary approach to the design and development of technologies. It's not anymore the case that software engineers or you name it can work on their own in their cave. We need to be together, sociologists, psychologists, communication specialists, culture experts, because everything belongs together. So I believe in the power of different disciplines converging to help technologies to serve the real good purpose.
Hello? Oh.
Is it working?
Yes, it seems it works. Yeah, my name is Erhel. I'm currently leading a project in Iraq to train the population. A lot of people from south to north of the country to 3D preserve or to document their heritage, and we will use technology for several reasons. The first reason is that it is cheaper and faster than anything else we have ever experimented in archaeology, There are around more than 30,000 sites in Iraq. Only 3% of them have been studied. So, and the rest of them is dramatically disappearing. Every year, Mesopotamia is a civilization of clay. So and it is the cradle of civilization, at least the Western civilization. This is where writing come from, bricks, division of time, beer. And it's melting, and Iraq has been appointed as the 5th country most threatened by climate change, and natural erosion is accelerated a lot these days, and this comes in addition to conflicts. We've seen terrible things lately, and these terrible things made by ISIS came after several wars in which some of our nation were involved, and or not, but it doesn't matter. The result is the same. It is as destructive for our common heritage in Iraq. So we will use technology because it is the fastest way to preserve what is left, and because this data is tomorrow heritage when it will have disappear. So, and it is important that this work is made with the population, and not only the specialists, because we don't mean to accumulate data only. It is important to share it. So of course we'll make databases, but we will share all of the 3D models, all of the 3D models that our trainees will be able to do in these 2 years, and share the metadata, maybe in Europeana or as widely as possible, but also on social media, and we'll have our trainees becoming characters of a story to work between. Iraq is a divided country. And there is something that brings the country together, whether they are Shia, Sunni, Yazidi, Kurdi, Christian. They have issues between each other, but there is something that keep them united. It's the pride of being the descendant of the inventors of civilization, and I kind of believe we have adapted through this to this civilization. We have been looting a lot.
Valentine.
Hi everyone, my name is Valentine Charles. I'm Data Services Director at Europeana. So I'm one of the dinosaurs at Europeana. You don't see it very much, but I've been here from the beginning. So I've in a way, it has been a great honor to follow the development of Europeana and now what could be become the data space. So yeah, there are two things that resonated in me with your talk, Caitlin. First, this connection with people and the users. I'm quite happy to say, I mean, we are not there yet, but at Europeana, we have become much better in really, when developing technologies or looking at data, to really think much more about the potential user scenarios and wondering ourselves why we are doing this and how it can contribute to the website and then contribute to the user experience. So, for example, our work around data quality has been a driver of bringing more and more this user perspective into what we do. And the other thing that I was quite happy to see, because I'm kind of a pragmatic person, there was the effective and efficient. You know, this it talks to me. So I have to say also in the way we are developing and integrated technology at Europeana, more and more we are trying to think, okay, how we can make things more efficient, more effective, and by doing that, in a way, we are also having a bit more impact on what could be the carbon footprint, etc. I find it personally easier to think in terms of efficiency and effectiveness to go about things this way rather than thinking, how can we make our technology more environmentally friendly. So So yeah, that could be also an approach that that works for others.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to go a bit deeper into this. I think, as Caitlin phrased it, why are we doing what we're doing, which is always a really important question to come back to or keep in the front of our minds. And I'm wondering whether the panel have thoughts on how do we embed that kind of awareness, to keep that question in our minds, in an environment where often we are working in funded projects, where it's very much around preconceived ideas of value and impact, that if we do this and we fund these people to do this many things, something good or something will happen at the end of it. How do we work with our funders and our stakeholders to keep that principle of sort of value interrogation, for want of a better phrase? Why are we doing this? Why is this important? And I wonder whether any of the panel would like to reflect on that from their own experience. How do you embed that at the beginning?
I've been working on this project for years without funding. We got funding yesterday by by Creative Europe, and I think it's also all about a network, because we have the Iraqi state as a partner, which means we will include the local communities, and we have access to all of the country, and I think it is a mission, because the needs have been identified a long time ago, and they are so obvious. We were pretty confident with both Carrare and our partners, Cyprus University, Rome University, La Sapienza. We were confident that we would be at some point funded, but it is mandatory to do something. I mean, not doing anything would be a crime, and we might have done something even for free, because it has to be done. It has to be done. It is a national treasure.
Great, thank you. Do any other panel members? Monique, please.
I'm not sure I understood your question. But, about creating value and how to make sure that this value goes beyond, the funding period. It's always a big challenge, because, of course, you have to have the right paths to exploit what you have created within, a given time frame, within a given context. And to create awareness about what you're doing and the relevance of what you are doing is key to engage others, to inspire others, to make sure that there is a level of awareness that goes beyond, the borders of your outreach. And here, of course, depending on the project, you might say, yes, we would have done it again. Some other times it's simply not possible, because you need the means, you need to pay for, equipment or whatever. But clearly here there is an important reflection to be made. That is, what is the level of engagement that we are able to have with policymakers? We need the right incentives to be provided for our projects, not to be just research and innovation projects that finish within the 2-3 years the funding lasts. We need policies that ensure that the results of these projects can be picked up, can be exploited. We need the right IPR rules and means to be made available also to small players. So there is a lot to be done to make sure really that we can move out of the labs and have a real impact. And this concerns a whole value chain creation. So again, I think we need to be connected to and speak and be able to speak to different stakeholders, including those that usually decide on investments. This is very important to me.
Thank you very much. This is where I remind the audience to please look for Yolan is the magic man with the magic blue box. If you have questions, please raise your hand. Oh, there's one immediately. Fantastic. So let's take a moment and pick up the question from our audience. We're also looking at the questions here on Zoom, which are appearing rapidly. So please introduce yourself and state your question for the panel. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone, and thank you also for the very thought-provoking keynote. And it has raised one particular question in my mind. Sorry, I'm Sebastian Majstorovic. I'm a co-founder of Saving Ukrainian Cultural Heritage Online, where our idea of sustainability, where we really focused, is of course the security of the data we're trying to preserve. I know I would like to throw a technological provocation into the round, because I have a feeling that there might be two diametrically opposed goals. On one hand, you have the goal of open access, which means readily available data on hot storage, which might be cloud and something like that. And then if you want to have a low carbon footprint, the better thing would be that you save data, on a hard drive in a basement where it doesn't consume, electricity. So how do we balance these two goals, where we say, okay, if, data preservation is also sustainability, how does it connect with giving everybody ready access, which takes service running 24/7 and consuming a lot of electricity? Is there a way out of this? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Who would like to respond? Ivan, please.
Yeah, and I would add a third aspect to your question, is the question of sovereignty. Sovereignty to the data. In the case of Iraq, it's been 200 years since European countries are coming to work and to make their research in Iraq, and but it is a national treasure, this data. So for us, what we negotiated with the state is that we will share all of the 3D models, we will share all the metadata, and the Iraqi state will remain the owner of the raw data. They will share it, but it is theirs to stay. And about the conservation of this data, there will be servers. It is out of question to put it on the cloud for security and sovereignty reason. It will be on servers, and we plan to make hard copies on LTO tapes that contain like 18 tera today, and that are more sustainable than hard drive. They have a longer life expectancy. It's planned to last for at least 30 years, when a hard drive is 5 years. And they will be kept in a safe in the State Board of Antiquities, and maybe a copy in my office.
I would like to ask something. So you touch upon a very delicate aspect, because I think, first of all, the term sustainability is misused. Sometimes we talk about sustainability of, an ecosystem, and it means, finding the right instruments for this ecosystem to survive and last and self-maintain itself. On the other hand, sustainability is, of course, related to how well we do with respect to protecting our environment. When it comes to technologies and to data to the data economy, there's a lot of work that has been going on in the last few years in order to have more efficient ways to save, store, process, analyze data. There's a lot of advanced techniques that allows you to get out of a data set much more value than it used to be, even with more limited data stored. There is edge computing that is promising to decentralize the intelligence, the storage, so that less data has to travel. There's the promise that beyond 5G, 6G will be even more efficient in terms of also of energy consumption. There are data centers that are fully powered by green energy as of today. My company moved to these green providers a few years ago. So there are ways to follow on the digital evolution and on the need to have a digital data space, a digital cultural data space that can also be sustainable. Of course, there's many challenges, because also the measure of the CO2 footprint and of other gases that are very, very polluting, it's not trivial. It's not trivial. On the other hand, we know that there are many means, and we know that if there is an industry that can have a huge impact across all the other sectors, is the digital one. So I really think that we need investments to understand how to decentralize, how to improve, how to be more efficient, but also how to decrease the concept. The concept of degrowth is out there now for a while, to decrease the need of devices. If we have few devices that are more powerful, if we have less sensors that are more powerful, maybe we will need less connected objects. So there's a lot going on, and I think we have to do much more there.
Just to respond to your question, Sebastian, thank you. I mean, just to throw an idea there. I mean, I don't know how it will respond to the concern of the energy consumption, but for me, it's like, is keeping the data in servers just because it's better from an energy perspective the best solution? For me, it's like, yeah, let's have the data circulate. So of course, then you have to understand, we have to address this issue of making it in a sustainable way. But for me, the more the data will circulate, the more sustainable it will be in a way. So then to address this question of sovereignty, I'm not going to say this word. The ownership of the data, because I know that there is question of security and also trust. So then where we have to put the emphasis, then it's to develop model for capturing the provenance of the data, making sure we really capture what has been done to the data, so that, you know, eventually we can always come back to the source, but we shouldn't be scared about, really having the data flowing. So to come back on this concept of the data space, I think it's what is very interesting is if we come up with framework, with standards, with rule of engagements that guarantee this, then a lot of good things could happen within the space, and we shouldn't be scared about it. And in a way, probably things will become more sustainable within that space. That's
Jeff.
Yes, thanks for the question. This is something that I've thought about quite a bit, a sort of preservation versus, I don't know, continuous access versus sustainability. I'm always worried about putting things in diametric slots, as you mentioned, which it often is. This question is often put in that framework. But I'll spit back a little bit of an analogy, because what it sounds a little bit like is having the digital data space, a cultural heritage space, is like having all museums always open all the time with all the lights on. Wouldn't that be great if we could go to whatever museum we want anytime? That it's always staffed, all the materials are all out, there's no depot, all of that sort of thing. I mean, I think in an ideal world that would be wonderful, but nothing quite works like that. It's a little too complex. As we heard about from Caitlin, I mean, and as we all know, all the materials are fallible. They can't survive this. And I think the digital materials, the digital culture is the same way, if in different ways, I suppose. So I think we should certainly strive for having everything safe in some way, and whatever that means, and accessible, of course. But the idea that some silver bullet will come along that we can do both perfectly all the time, I don't know if that's a goal we should strive for too much. And maybe we should be a little bit more creative with how we approach it. What that creativity looks like, I can't say. But that's my provocation a little bit.
Yes, I think this is why we have to choose what we share. and for which audience. In our case, for example, the raw data only addresses to the real specialists, to the very few archaeologists interested in Mesopotamia or contemporary history, or the future generation that will use them with technologies that are not born yet. We are basically using photogrammetry today. Maybe tomorrow they will be using raw data, today's raw data, and make amazing things that we cannot imagine yet. And so metadata is nothing. You can have a petabyte of raw data fitting in a USB key of metadata. So this can circulate more easily. And but you have also to address to your audience, and what we believe is more relevant to a wider audience in our case are the 3D models, which are fun. It's a fun way to show heritage, and you can manipulate it whether you are old or young, and the videos around that we are going to play. We are going to shoot videos about the people doing these 3D models. So these are things that must circulate widely when the raw data doesn't have to and has to be stored. And the server maybe doesn't have to be plugged all the time, especially in a country with power cuts, like five times a day. And this and the LTO tapes, digital tape, seems for now to be a good solution. But we have to choose what we make circulate, and for which audience, and with the goal to open the audience and unite specialists, non-specialists, Iraqi, European people together on the same purpose.
Thank you, Ivan. And I have a follow-up question for you from the online audience regarding digital accessibility. How can different Iraqi communities have access to the things which have been digitized? What are the interfaces or the tools in which they do that?
Iraqi people, especially the young people, they are really crazy about social media. They are still in the. It's very addictive. You post a picture of your pizza, you might have 500 likes, and it's even more relevant for heritage, because this is something that keeps the country united, and there is a will to talk and to exchange between the south, the Shia south basically, and the Sunni north, and then all of the minority that are in the north and in between. They're all ready to share about this. There are Facebook groups with dozens of thousands of members, always passionate. They're not academic. They don't have diplomas. They are not archaeologists, but they just like to share. And the trainees we will choose, they will be representative of the diversity of the country, and with women and young people and specialists and non-specialists, and all together they can share anything. They can share anything and stories. They can share fact and stories. And actually, my company is Facts and Stories.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
And now we are going to take another question from one of our online participants. Marco, thank you for the question. How credible are cultural heritage institutions in striving for sustainable digital transformation if we ourselves are running the rat race to become the most relevant in the digital space? Jeff, yeah.
Yeah, I really like this question, actually, as it speaks to and what I would typify as something like a popularity race. I wonder exactly how we can combat this. It feels a little like we need to take the ego out of it. Maybe the narrative is occasionally something like, we want more eyes on our collections, more eyes on what we do. We do great things, and we do great things. But then it becomes a contest, or it is a bit of a contest. It has become that. And I wonder if there are ways that we can move around that, move past that. And I mean, Europeana is an example of that, of a federation body, of bringing things together, and there are certainly others. That's at least one direction I think we might or should go to, start to grapple with this idea of maybe we don't need to compete for the attentions of people. Maybe we bring them to us, and the curious. I don't know how much further I can go with that, but that's at least what I have to say at the start.
Yeah, so it's true. So as part of the activities the Europeana initiative is working on, we use a lot this term of indeed helping cultural heritage institution in their digital transformation. And I think in a way, I could see that as a great opportunity, because digital transformation is also taking into account everything we have heard in those 3 days, becoming also integrating better this idea of sustainability, taking into account environmental concern, the storytelling aspect. So this digital transformation is also about effort around capacity building and educating ourselves, educating each other through training, conversation like this. So I don't really see the two being completely opposite in a way. I think it's a great opportunity to raise awareness, and in fact from the beginning, as we are developing those digital activities, to start from a good foot, already integrating all those principles.
Let's take another question from the room. Please introduce yourself and state your question for the panel.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Hello, my name is Ariadna, and I work for the Europeana Foundation as a policy advisor. I have a sort of question / comment / frustration, and I wanted to see if anyone in the audience shares the same. So every time I hear about us being kind of environmentally conscious, I think it's amazing, and I wouldn't expect less from the cultural heritage sector, which is full of people that is responsible, smart, and who use their brains. And then I get slightly frustrated when I see that at the same time we have people creating metaverses for private objectives, people sending other people to Mars for private objectives, and people flying around to play a football game on an individual jet. And I believe that the preservation of cultural heritage is much more important than Messi playing a game, especially since he left the FC Barcelona, and I don't know, a couple of people visiting Mars for pleasure and not for science. And I do get slightly frustrated to think that they are damaging the planet, whereas we are being so socially conscious, and that we would be ready to put certain things in hold just because our governments are not brave enough to take a holistic approach and put certain obligations in place. So it's as if we were ready to pay for their greediness. And I wonder if maybe beyond all of the things that have been said, that we should be creative in solving and doing everything we can for, and taking responsibility for our own actions. If in addition to that, we should be talking to governments or to these, like those who create damage. And so not that we shouldn't be doing what we need to do, but if in parallel, we can take a position on all this as well, beyond the use of cultural heritage sector.
Thanks, Ariadna, for introducing Messi to the data space. Any of our panelists like to respond?
Well, I guess we all share a lot of these frustrations. I mean, at least I talk to me. And, if we could change the world, we would. But I think here what it's clear is that there is a chain of responsibilities that starts at the political level. So definitely policymakers, politicians must be included in these dialogues. But we all have, it's pretty clear that at the end of the day, it's the money that moves politics. I'm sorry to say so cynic, but, there's too much of a collusion at that level. So many decisions are taken under, I think, the wrong perspective. Even though now what's happening in the world with the climate emergency, with the disasters that are, just disrupting our life and our way of life. The only hope is that we will learn from this and react quickly as possible. And all should react, because otherwise it will be a lost cause. On the other hand, I have 3 girls, and for me, no matter what's going to happen at the high level, what I want to do is to make sure that they follow principles that can help in protecting the environment. So I think education is key. And of course, not only education of young people. I wish I could educate my mom sometimes, if you know what I mean. So yeah, education is key, but also politics and financial, fiscal incentives.
Thank you. There's a great question in the chat, I think, that maybe we'll come to after Valentine has a comment. So you go first.
Maybe it's one frustration and throwing another one, which is quite often with this topic, the way we approach people is also kind of negative, you know, pointing the finger, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, instead of really explaining, oh, what can you do and what is the impact. So yeah, I think it was in your talk, Caitlin, where it was really what we do, cultural heritage, is to bridge the present, the past and the present. So it's also maybe for us, our role is also to use the collections to anchor people a bit more in the present, but also using our collection to do that, and really just, yeah, maybe in a storytelling manner, you know, just have an honest and simple conversation to people, to explain to them what is just going on and what kind of action they can take, rather than taking this kind of political perspective and kind of, yeah, having this negative and sometimes, yeah, pointing the finger and make you feel bad about everything you do, basically. So yeah, I think probably we are better positioned to do that, and also looking at those new experience, like this immersive experience with the Van Gogh in the room. Maybe, yeah, there are ways to make those messages go through in a easier manner and probably more impactful manner. So yeah, maybe it is where we can have a role.
Yes, I just wanted to add that I somehow disagree a little bit with what you said, because having the attention of a state is possible, even if you are like a private company like mine. If you find the right partner, if you address the right needs, if you have support from the population and from scientists, and that you address needs that are important, you can have state support. And our project is supported by the Iraqi state, but also by the European Commission. And we can consider that public entities like La Sapienza University of Rome and the Cyprus University are states as well. So if you address the right needs, and if you're not too greedy on money or what you want to make, things are possible.
Thank you. Let's take another question from the chat. This is from our excellent colleague Patrick, leader of Europeana's Green Team and the lead author of the carbon footprint analysis, which Caitlin so helpfully and nicely highlighted in her keynote. So Patrick asks, many organizations don't do anything unless there's a KPI. Sounds familiar. I wonder, says Patrick, if any of the organizations that the panelists work for or have worked with have sustainability-related KPIs, and if not, why not? A key performance indicator, a metric. Does anyone feel bold enough to respond to that question? Jeff, please.
Sure, I can start. And well, bold is perhaps the right word. At TU Delft, yes, there are too many metrics for me to count. And maybe that's part of the problem, is that every department, every faculty, the university itself has a number of things they like to measure. I have no overview of them myself. I see bits and pieces there. We have an entire department dedicated to sustainability. My department is called Sustainable Design Engineering. And so at the very highest levels, they do keep some sort of figures, but I don't know how much these reflect a reality, to be honest. I don't know much I can speak to that. Yeah, that's my perspective. I would be very interested to hear what the others think.
I don't know. Yeah, it echoes also a bit the keynote about measuring thing. I'm just wondering if then if we start having those KPIs where we measure everything, are we not killing the purpose of it in a way? So yeah, so for sure you have to motivate actions, and yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, indeed, putting KPIs or measuring things is the best way to, in fact, take action and take the right actions. So I don't have an answer on how we should approach things, but yeah, I'm kind of also having some doubt on this approach. I would feel it might kill the purpose or make us at the end do things that are not maybe counterproductive or counter-sustainable in a way.
So I'm an electrical engineer and I love numbers. I love KPIs and I love smart objectives, because I believe that if you cannot measure what you are doing, it's very difficult to claim how good you are doing, right? So the challenge is that sometimes you don't know what to measure or how to measure things. So in a very simple way, a few years ago in my company, we're about 20, 25 people, we decided that we wanted to be more sustainable, whatever it means, right? And so we define ourselves a number of KPIs because we found out that a lot of pseudo consultants tell you how you need to transform your business to become sustainable. Reading here and there, we were not convinced, so we said, okay, let's have a scientific approach. And so we decided to look, at all the different aspects about our business: traveling, organizing meeting, organizing events, producing materials, using materials, devices that we use in the company, providers, internet provider, which you choose, and so on and so forth. And we came up with a pretty long list. We have our own database of sustainable restaurants when we travel in Europe, or the ones that at least claim, right, to use local products. We have a list of so-called sustainable hotels. We moved to a green internet provider. We try to optimize the way the lights and the devices are organized. You can buy solar keyboards. You can do little things, but at least you can really try to enforce a shift in the mind of people. And I try to do that with our employees, but also with my friends, with my daughters. We wrote a little article with a white paper with Digital for Planet, actually, that it's on how to improve your digital habits to minimize your footprint. So I really think that you can set objectives and try to achieve them.
Thank you. Ivan.
Yes, me on this topic, I have a question. How much does it cost? How much does it cost to measure my footprint in a country where there are oil field in fire all the time? Hundreds of countries like this, and this is true to Iraq. But I believe I see Tech for Heritage as a model of action that can be repeated, maybe in Sudan, maybe in Central Africa, maybe in Ukraine. I think it's already done somehow. But measuring our footprint is a luxury that not every nation can afford. And the meaning of doing it is not the same here in the country of the 1% and there where oil is burning day and night, hundreds of oil fields. So what's the point when heritage is disappearing every day?
Thank you. Let's take another question from the room.
Hi, I'm Mike, and I just want to put a couple of ideas into play based on Patrick's question and these great answers from the House, but be ready with another question soon. One is that in my experience, every government I come into contact with, library systems, heritage organizations around the world, businesses, are now being asked to report on sustainable metrics. And libraries and museum organizations and businesses are now kind of backfilling, like, how are we going to report on this? How are we going to report our commitment, our part of the commitment my culture has made towards whatever the green targets are? And there's a tremendous moment of leverage here for all of you, everyone in this room, to insert yourself into that process. And I would say not just to claim credit for recycling bins in your lobbies, but to actually challenge yourselves to make consequential commitments to your governments, to those who fund you, to those who empower you in your societies, to really actually make a difference. So there is a structure there, and Patrick and everyone, I hope that we come back a year from now and we have a more evidence-based, a more sophisticated conversation about this. The other thing is, my observation is that you are all starting up projects, you've been involved in the beginnings of things. There's this moment in the design process when you have a tremendous amount of leverage on this process. There's an anecdote about 2 apartment buildings, identical, built side by side. In one, the electricians put the power meters inside the homes, and in the other, the power meters were on the outside of the homes. Magically, the people who could see their power meter when they opened the door every day, 30% less energy usage right away. There's tremendous leverage at the beginning, at the design of things, if you're sharp and you pay attention. And that's sort of the beauty of this conversation now, and the beauty of what we've been hearing the last few days here. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. And that speaks almost to the power meters being slightly a psychological solution rather than a technocratic solution. Madhavi, I think you have a question.
I have a question. Interestingly, sometimes we've noticed that there are external factors for technology to be adopted. And that's not always sustainable. Technology is not always sustainable, especially when it's pushed by audiences to adopt through big corporations, right? As the cultural sector, we always want to weigh in and be part of that as we welcome audiences that are now used to that not sustainable technology. How do we deal with that kind of a situation? Do we give in and say, okay, everybody's adopted it, we might as well make use of it as well because that's what the audience is used to now? Or do we take a moment to think back and reflect on our choices, as Mike mentioned, that's what we do as a cultural sector. We reflect on our choices better than corporations would. So what's your take on that? I'm curious.
Are you talking about Sketchfab?
Not particularly, but just in general, a lot of technology that our audiences get used to because it comes through external factors to them. It could be anything to do with how they pay for services, to how they consume the internet. Could be anything really. Could be social media, anything.
Yes, Sketchfab is currently the best way to share 3D models, heritage 3D models, and there is no, and it's a corporation, and it's a corporation with incredible rights claiming, but it's also a social network, and it's currently the best way to share. I wish we could work with more public-funded tools. I wish Europeana to be able to develop nice 3D viewers without, but because currently to post if I understood well, to post a model on Europeana, you have to pass through Sketchfab, which is a private company and not a European one. So yes, we need tools. We need tools, and we need. I think we need. It's of public general interest and public interest. So we need public tools.
No, for me, it comes back to this principle of efficiency and yeah. So as a community working together, there are also technologies that can be used to still address the needs of the user. For example, yeah, I'm thinking about images in a high resolution with potential to zoom in, etc. There are standards and protocols that are developed at the moment. I'm thinking about IIIF, for example, that offers also the opportunity to kind of work more collaboratively on this technology. So, for example, an institution could act as a IIIF server, a repository for the images, and then maybe different organization can use that server to also display the same images. So in a way, you avoid this effect where, because everybody wants highest resolution images, we would all start copying all these images and store them into separate servers. So I think it's also our role as a community to also still address the need of our users, but doing conscious choice about the technologies we are using it, and also develop models of cooperation around those technology. So yeah, there are things like that, and I think also linked data can play a role into that, where we develop more efficient way to share data, to exchange data, which lower those factor on the pressure on performance, energy consumption, etc. And it's something usually we have been good at in this sector, so it's something we should develop even more and shout about in a way to others.
Thank you. Jeff?
So I'm wondering how to phrase this a little bit. So when you ask about things like technologies that are there that maybe we should reconsider a little bit, I immediately think of things like the automobile, where it wasn't known immediately that it was going to take off, but it did. And now, 80 so years later, we're thinking, maybe we shouldn't be so reliant on that. And there, of course, are more closer parallels to all worlds. Should all of our museums have a data portal with all of our collections online? Maybe, but we probably will soon. And the way that I'm thinking of approaching this is, the question of needs was one of the first ones that we started with here. And it's a little bit of a balance of, do I need this? And how the tools that I'm using to meet these needs, are they quite the same? And I think when we're talking about entrenched tools, it's a slow, concerted effort to remove them, and it's also a collective desire to remove them. Something like cars, it feels like now there's a feeling in the air, the moment that, well, we need to reduce this a bit, and it looks like maybe we're moving that way with a digital carbon footprint as well, and it will be slow. And my tool to use this, I guess, in my pedagogical world is sort of speculative fiction. I like the idea of what will our grandkids need or want. I recently read Kim Stanley Robinson's Ministry for the Future. I'm always trying to promote that a bit. Also Margaret Atwood's Oryx and Crake. And so that's the sort of lens of, well, can we imagine, and it sounds simple, but try it after the session, of what like a digital data space looks like in 25 or 50 or 100 years. And then we can at least start having the ideas to go in that direction and phase out the things that we all take for granted now. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have a question from the audience?
Yeah, sorry, that was noisy. I'm Bart Magnus from Memo, Belgium. Just maybe to go a bit deeper into the don't measure what you know and measure what you don't know, what Caitlin told us. One of the things I think we don't know is how to measure, for example, this carbon footprint of the tools, technologies, software that we use. And I think it's a very difficult one because there's often transparency lacking. I think if you design tools from scratch, you have an impact, as was already said. But a lot of the tools that we use are just off-the-shelf tools, sometimes from the big companies, sometimes not. And I think it's not, open software is one aspect, but open software doesn't necessarily mean environmentally friendly. So my question is there, where do we start in measuring this? First of all, I would say carbon footprint of tools, technologies, but it goes even further, I think, because there's an whole ethical background in working conditions of people training AI models and things like that. I mean, you can go even further than environmental than the environment only. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Who wants to take that?
I'm looking at my colleagues for a time check. We're at time. Okay. So this is a wrap. Thank you very much.
We have a question.
Yeah. Please put your hands together for our fabulous panel.